we have no problem. If we respect the law, we don't pay any tetri, any kopek of bribe to the custom for the tax on the revenue, and so on and so on. And I think it shows that it was the success because it shows that it is not superficial. It was not pakazucha, it was really real. Another example, myself, I became Georgian, I took the citizenship, and my daughter also, when she was 2 years old, but we had to give her the citizenship. And so we went to the public service hall, and soon they will open some in Ukraine. So I had some questions. My daughter was 2 years old. Do I need some criminal record for her, for example, and things like this. So I was going to the website, chatting, and asked my question in English in this case. And somebody was answering correctly. And what happened is that, which never happened even in France, and maybe not in Switzerland, at the end of my chat with the civil servant from the public service hall, I could save my chat on my computer, keep it somewhere in a file, and then if I would have a problem, I can use it against the administration, saying, you told me this, and so on. So it shows how deep it went in the process to erase the bureaucracy, and in this case even to really give the, to really open the rule of law, to give the rights to citizens. So in this regard, I wanted to underline this. I will not be only positive about the reforms in Georgia, but just to show how deep it is, and there is no discussion on that. It worked because the political will was there, and I think this is the base of everything. If you can launch every reform, but if you are not committed for them to succeed, it will not work. And this is also, I think, today why Mr. Saakashvili is so active in Ukraine. He wants to be sure that it will work because it is important for the fate of the post-Soviet space in general. But to also explain you what were the plus and the minuses, and because for Georgians at this time, the elite, the people who were leading the country, it was a question of life or death. And we have the feeling here today in Ukraine also that it is about that. It will explain why it was so successful. It will explain also the mistakes, I think. Maybe to try to show these both sides, I will just ask the question why Mr. Saakashvili lost the election in 2012. I think it's because the Georgian people didn't vote for him, and so far his party, for other political reasons, but is very weak today. It's about 20%, the national movement of Mr. Saakashvili. And people don't really regret him at the moment, even if the new government is very passive, has no real political will to change the things, and mostly it's continuing what was done before. I think the first reason, it will be again a positive side, but it's that Georgia is open. So there was an election, there was a competition, a real one, not always very fair. Mr. Saakashvili was not happy to see somebody from opposition coming, which was a billionaire who made his wealth in Russia, so it was raising a lot of questions, but mostly Georgia is open, and as everywhere in the world, once there is an election, people want to change. In France, even, you know, our Socialist Party usually is elected just to say that it's time to change, and we change, we don't know, but we want to change. So, and when the people are free, and probably it would be the same even in Russia and so on, as soon as you have a competitor, people want to change, to expect more better life. I think that was a first reason. The second one, that often the Saakashvili's team, or the former team, is speaking about, is the fact that many thousands, let's say thousands, of state servants were fired. Like when they did the police reform, there was 72,000, I think, people in the MVD, in the Ministry of Internal Affairs. Why? It was twice too much, but at the Chevan at this time, it was a way to secure the regime in case of problem, and these people were allowed to take bribes every day in the street and in their job. So everywhere, in the ministries, in the customs, there was too much people which were there just, as you know, just to take the money from the people. So of course it makes thousands of families which were unhappy with the reforms, and it's part of the reason why people were unhappy and didn't vote for him. I think the third reason, and maybe you saw that, right 13 days, 2 weeks before the elections in 2012, some videos with the help of his competitor, Mr. Ivanishvili, were published about abuses in prison. Some and many prisoners had bad treatment. I would not speak about torture, there were some cases, but mostly it was abuse. And for the Georgia, it was we knew about that more or less, but for the first time we could see that with videos as an evidence, and even Saakashvili's team didn't say it was wrong. They say, okay, we did mistakes, and so on. I think this says a lot of things. A lot of people use that and say, okay, we don't want to vote for this man, because they was always speaking about democracy, and they do a lot of PR with that, but the reality is different. And finally, it's very post-Soviet. We are in prison, we are badly treated. I think it says a lot. It's quite complex, these abuses in prison. Again, you should not compare with Uzbekistan. It's nothing to do with that, but still, it was not a democratic way to deal with prisoners. I think it was showing for a lot of Georgians that the rule of law, the human rights, and all these values were not respected totally. They were in the discourse, in the speeches, but not in the reality. One of the reasons is probably what I was saying. There was this feeling for the Georgian government that we had to go very fast. We have to break this system, this vicious circle of corruption and so on. We have to change the society. And this is why they wanted to go so fast and not respect all the democratic rules, which takes time. That's very simple, because we have to decide together, we have to be a bit more soft, and so on. So this is, I think, the limit, and this is also one of the reasons, I will come back to that, but it was also because this revolution was coming from the top. Few people were deciding, and there were few controlled by the society. Maybe here, we can hope, I will finish with a positive note at the end. There is Maidan. There is a legitimacy from the place, from the people, and it can be a way to control in general the government. It's never won in advance, but it can be something important. And I was speaking about the prison, but in many sectors it was not as democratic as it was said. The media were really controlled. The justice was not independent. And probably the tragedy of Saakashvili's time was that there was no opposition. Because opposition was weak, with no idea, Saakashvili didn't help them, but okay, it was not his role to help his opposition, I would say, or as president he could do. But first it was because it was a weak opposition with no ideology and so on. And nobody could threat him and say, you know, justice has to be independent, and to force him to do so. So this is where the role, and this is where we see all the difficulty of this revolution. We have to go quick, we have to be radical, but it is a liberal revolution. So how do you do that and keep the liberal and the democratic values to do so? That's, I don't know where is the solution. Again, maybe the Georgian society was not ready for that. I remember that before the revolution, the people I knew were in the NGOs criticizing Shevardnadze's regime and so on. And when Saakashvili came to power, all this civil society sector became minister or MPs and so on. So there was nobody anymore. The people who are really talented, which are really determined and so on, they were not anymore here to criticize, to counterbalance the power. And that, again, that's a very important thing. So in these sectors of the freedoms, of the democratic values, it was quite, this is where the negative sides lays, and I explain the reason. I'm not here in a position to say it's bad or wrong, just try to explain the processes. When this video scandal erupted at the end of September 2012, I did some stories for my medias. And for example, I was among the people who were in the demonstrations. And there were a lot of students, for example, at the beginning, from the government universities, the state universities. And by the way, it was difficult to take interviews for me. I'm speaking a bit of Georgian, but not really much. They were not speaking English, these young people. They were not speaking Russian, and they were speaking Georgian. Why? Because during Saakashvili's time, there was this very liberal program, economical, and they really tried to base, for example, the reform of education on, okay, erasing corruption and so on. It was done perfectly, immediately, but also it was based on the private university, a very liberal model. And a lot of Georgian young people could not afford the universities, the private universities. And the state universities became the level became really to go down because the good teachers, the good professors, they went to private universities where they get much better salary. So their diplomas were really weak, and this is why they were in the street. Of course, they were unhappy with the scandals of the prisons, but also because in their life, they were unhappy. I mean, their diplomas, to say it simply, was just had no anymore any value. The first reason would be in the economical ground. This government, this reform really improved the business climate. There was no corruption anymore. The bureaucracy was reduced to the minimum, and all the opportunities to give bribe to state servants were removed. They really tried to attract investors, and it was quite working. They created some free economical zones. But Georgia is a very small country in the Caucasus, so it was not easy to attract business. For example, Dubai is not so far. It's a big hub. Istanbul also, so the competition is huge. So Georgia can play its role, but it was difficult. So again, I don't want to say that they were wrong. Certainly that their economy was extremely liberal. They expected at the beginning that the market would decide, and it didn't really work. And after the war in 2008, I didn't make an investigation on that, but I have the feeling that the government said, okay, now we have to do something, and the government started to be more involved in the economy and to develop some sectors, like transport. They did before, but they really continued. Tourism. And I think now it starts to pay, but they are not anymore in the power. But they really create a life for tourists, which was, I mean, no policeman would bother you. Okay, Georgia has a good image. They try to restore the old city of Tbilisi, where in the countryside you have churches. They did they built like little cafe, little hotels, little boutique, and it started to really bring people to Georgia. And for the economy, that's huge. I think today it's like 5 million visitors a year. It really, I forgot exactly how it increased, but it's really significant at the Georgian scale. But they didn't, at the end, they didn't really create jobs. People continue to leave the country. And this is one of the reason of the failure of the Rose Revolution, let's say. A fifth reason could be the war, of course, the war of 2008. A part of the population, but I don't think it's that important, so that Saakashvili was guilty, that he was provoking Putin, let's say so, and then because of that we receive what we got from the Russians. I'm not sure it is that important. There are some people who would speak so, but I don't think it played a decisive role in all of this. But about the atmosphere, it is true that the Rose Revolution, maybe it was to mobilize the population. Maybe it is linked to the personality of Mr. Saakashvili, who is a fighter. Saakashvili is a fighter, he's not a ruler. All the policy was permanently, I mean, to be in opposition with Russia and so on. And at some point it was also a way to avoid to speak about something else. More democracy, more to focus on the economy and so on. Just to conclude, I would say that what is clear is that, and to explain what I tried just to give an idea of the positive and the negative sides, and the idea was we have to be radical, we have to be so quick. So, okay, we are working for democracy, but let's wait a little bit. When they fired the 32 or 40,000 policemen, everyone received a letter of resignation in one day. Everybody had to sign, and half of them were just dismissed, and maybe more even. And they took some younger people because they say we need some new blood, people who are not corrupted by the Soviet or post-Soviet regimes and so on. Of course, there is a paradox. We make a liberal revolution, but we don't do it in a liberal way, at least at the beginning. Again, here you have Maidan. The revolution is not coming from the elite. On the contrary, it comes from the people, and this is maybe where there is a chance, even for such radical methods, to control this and to keep the revolution in the track of, let's say, a more democratic revolution and evolution. That's all for the moment.
Thank you very much. Шановні колеги, в кого є
Any questions, dear colleagues? Please introduce yourselves.
And my question is, if to combine policy of Mr. Putin to Georgia with the one to Ukraine, can you combine occupied territories of Crimea and Donbass with what's going on or was going on in Abkhazia? Thank you.
Yes, thank you for this question. This is why I'm here. I'm trying to work on an article to compare the various experience where Russia, these last 25 years, created some separatist zones or regimes. I think it's very similar. Some people would say, no, it happened a bit by chance. Donbass was not sure that it would happen, and it comes from the people. But I don't think so, and I can really compare the way. And for me, this is maybe my plus and my minus, but when I come here, I come precisely with the idea of what happened, what I observe in the Caucasus in 13 years that I'm living there. And in this way, I can try to always to preview what will happen or to guess myself, and I feel it works quite well. So I think it's really comparable. Crimea, I think, is another story. What I mean is that separatism is not used to revenge. It's not about separatism. It's about controlling a country which is not loyal anymore towards Russia. It was the case with Georgia, but NATO and so on, and it is what happens now. So what is important is that the separatist entity, for example, Donbass or Abkhazia or Ossetia, is staying within, officially, within the constitutional framework of a country, like Ukraine today, and from inside trying to keep Kiev here in this side and not going further on the west. And this is the same for Georgia. For Crimea, it was another story. I think it was more dealing with internal politics with Mr. Putin. So me personally, with this in mind, when I was there last year for the referendum, or so-called, I wrote at this point that now there will be Donbass, that there will be something in the Donbass, because precisely if Crimea is totally detached, is totally now included in the Russian Federation, Putin can't use it anymore against Kiev. But this is the goal. So he needed to create something else, and it is Donbass. Crimea is not a tool anymore against Crimea. He wants to not speak about it. It's finished for him. While Donbass, you see that, and this is a paradox. Sometimes people say they want to split Ukraine and so on. That's true, but look at what he said. This is named the DNR and LNR, for example, are always saying that they want to stay within this framework. This is in the Minsk agreement. This is why there is a debate on the special status and so on.
колеги, будь ласка, в кого ще є
Any other questions, clarifications? No. Then we would like to thank our guest.